You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the Weekly Firecast, episode 15, interview with JD Cowles of Allspice Cafe.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the Weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies. Those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. Now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And greetings to all the hot sauce fiends, chili pepper fanatics, barbecuers, grillers, chicken wing lovers, salsa munchers, and I could go on and on and on. You know who you are. If you love fiery foods and barbecue, you've come to the right place. My name is Scott Roberts. I am the host of the Weekly Firecast. I'm also a blogger, a reviewer, and a spicy food writer. And the headquarters for all my activities can be found at scottrobertsweb.com. It's a fiery foods blog that I maintained for over 5 years. And if you haven't taken a look at it lately, be sure to check it out. There's all kinds of good little tidbits of information, reviews, news, all kinds of things that you would love over there, including the Scoville Scale Chart for hot sauces and chili peppers. And what you're listening to right now is my little aim into the whole podcasting world. So I try to have a good balance of everything in the show, spicy foods and barbecue. I lump everything together in what I call flavor enhancers. Anything that you would add to food in the cooking process to season it as a finishing sauce, or just something you splash on eggs and pizza and tacos. If it's intensely flavorful and quite often spicy, I love it. And I'm sure everyone who is listening to this can identify with me. You're probably the same way too. That you hate boring, bland food, and you want to get sauce and seasoning and spice and smoke and to just about everything you eat. And of course, as the old saying goes, once you love it spicy, you cannot go back. So enough about that. The focus of this week's episode will be hot sauce maker JD Cowles. And if you're unfamiliar with him, his company, Allspice Cafe, was founded several years ago. He and his business partner, John Lasco, had formed a company out in L.A., and they produce some of the best sauces out there. They also make candied popcorn, kind of like a caramel corn, but it's very candied. Of course, there's spice, chili pepper spice added to it, and it is phenomenal. In addition to that, they have a couple of really good seasonings. And JD and John's website can be found at allspicecafe.com, or you can just click a link in the show notes. Anyway, I talked to JD as he was driving home from a food event, and you can listen to that interview several minutes from now. Before that, I want to list not some of my pet peeves, but some of the things that I wish that sauce manufacturers would do. Maybe a few things that they could avoid, things that kind of bug me. Not all sauce manufacturers will commit these types of sins and little gripes, but enough of them do, and I finally want to address it. And hopefully more than a few of them will take a listen to this and realize, oh, there's some stuff we shouldn't be doing. So I'll present that short list to you in a few minutes. But before that, I want to name off everyone who was kind enough to share the link on Facebook or Twitter. And I started a couple weeks ago, and this is how it goes. Whenever I tweet or post a link to a Weekly Firecast episode, either on Twitter or on Facebook, if you retweet that tweet, if you share that link, I will mention your name in the episode. And also, if you're a company, I will mention your company's name and website. How about that? For a little bit of free exposure to it. It's my little way of saying thanks to everyone for helping to spread the word about this podcast. And since I put these podcasts out on Friday or Saturday every week, it's something to take a look at on my Facebook page at facebook.com/ScottRobertsWeb, or at my Twitter account, which is at Scott Roberts. Just take a look at that, retweet it, share that link, and I will mention you in the very next episode. But anyway, let me get to the list of people who share this on Facebook. First, there's my good friend, Firehead Thomas Gately. There was Jim Duffy of Refining Fired Chilies, a big chili grower in the San Diego, California area. He could be found at refiningfiredchilies.com. There is also Dan Arnold at Sucklebusters. He makes several good barbecue sauces and seasonings. His website can be found at sucklebusters.com. There is Judy Furhop of Zestfest of Fiery Food Productions. And also sharing this were the fine folks at the Disket Grill. And they're a grill manufacturer. They can be found at disc-it.com. Again, they are the Disket Grill. And then there was Mike Davis. Thank you very much, Mike. Also sharing a link on Facebook, C-Max Backyard Barbecue, Jesse Bloyd, and Hannah Shaver, who I just happened to interview in the last week's episode. And she, of course, is from Apple Canyon Gourmet, which you can find at applecanyon.com. There was Christina Gust Cloud, and then last but not least, Jim O'Brien of Crazy Good Hot Sauces. And his website is crazygoodsauce.com. And retweeting the link, there was the Pepper Ranch, and their Twitter handle is at Pepper Ranch. There was Matazima Hot Sauce, and their Twitter handle is at MatazimahS. There is Chef Eloy's Salsas. His Twitter handle is Chef Eloy Salsa. And there was Corina. Her Twitter handle is Corina Pedrati. Huge thanks goes to everybody for that. I appreciate the love and the support and the promotion that you've all given me. All right, here are some of the pet peeves. Some of the things that bug me about hot sauces, and it could also include barbecue sauces for that matter. Some of the things that sauce manufacturers, I wish that they would just get and understand. Little things that irritate me. Things that will inconvenience my day when it comes to enjoying sauces. So anything that blocks me from making it as easy as possible to enjoy your product, well, here's a short list of those kinds of things. And number one, this is probably more of a personal preference of mine, but I like sauces with a medium or a thick consistency. Ones that are overly thin, watery, drippy, runny, they bug me to death. I know some of the bigger brands out there, Tabasco, Frank's, and any of the other Louisiana-style hot sauces, those cayenne pepper-based sauces from the great state of Louisiana that are popular out there. Yeah, I know. They have a certain level of success that far eclipses outside of anything that a specialty hot sauce maker would have. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should follow that. Now me, when I pour a sauce out, I want it to have some stickability, something that adheres to food, something that just doesn't run and drip off like water. I mean, I know you're trying to go for a specific flavor profile. That's probably the most important thing in creating the sauce. I would rather have something that tastes great with maybe not the most ideal consistency, but at least not have it be all watery as hell. That drives me nuts. Again, it's probably more of a personal preference for me. A lot of other people out there, including you yourself listening to this, may like those kind of really runny sauces. To me, it's just not my thing. And I will typically knock a point or two off of a sauce review just because of that aspect, if it is, in fact, overly runny. So my advice, add a little bit more meat to it, a little bit more heft. Don't make it like a big, thick, chunky salsa. That's not what I'm saying. But when you pour it out, have it stand up. Just don't have it splash all over the place like water. I'm a fan where you could almost taste the pulp in it. It could be little tiny shreds, little pieces of ingredients, chili peppers and garlic and things like that in the mix. I like that. And again, not to where it has a chewy texture, not to where you have to really bite into it and chew it up to break up the contents in your mouth. Again, I'm not looking for a chunky salsa. I'm just looking for something that will adhere to food. And pet peeve number 2, this is a big one with me. It's the flow restrictor caps that you put at the end of a bottle. Now, I understand if you do happen to have a runny hot sauce, this might be good for something like that. But if your product is anything more than the consistency of a Tabasco, if it's a medium consistency, take these damn things off. I don't want to have to shake and hit the bottle 100 times just to get a few drops out on my food. It is irritating. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself that you're doing this for the convenience of the end user. Well, you're not. This bugs us to death. And if you do have a sauce with some thickness to it, it is so hard to get out that tiny hole at the end. Take these things off. We don't need them. And not only that, but without these, your customers, the end users, will tend to pour out more out of the bottle. And this is a very good thing, because why? They tend to use more of your product. They will go through the bottle quicker, they will run out quicker, and they will buy your product sooner. So if anything, if there's any takeaway from this point, people will use your product quicker and they will buy more from you if they use more of it. So it's a huge no-brainer. Now, any sauces I find with these on there, when I first open a bottle, I will pop them off immediately, throw them in the trash. I don't need them. I don't use them. I am very careful about how much I pour on food, so don't worry. I'm smart. I'm not operating in the dark here. I'm just not going to haphazardly turn a bottle upside down and dump too much on my food. I think that some sauce manufacturers should give hot sauce users a little bit more credit. We're not little kids. We're not going to make a huge mess. We're smart enough to pour the stuff out of the bottle slowly, but it's better without these restrictor pieces on. So don't put them on at all. And my third gripe, yes, shrink wrap. I completely understand why you put them on there. Health and safety concerns. You don't want it to have where the bottle appears to be tampered with. I totally get it. But don't make me get a steak knife out just to take the shrink wrap off. What I want is shrink wrap with perforations on it. And yes, it may cost you a couple more cents for shrink wrap to put these on your hot sauce bottles. But you know what? Make the cost of the sauce 5 cents more. I don't care. It makes things a lot easier when I could just very easily pull the perforated strip off, shrink wrap comes right off, and I'm able to enjoy your product more. And while I'm on this topic, I know a whole lot of sauce manufacturers don't commit the sin, but for bottles that aren't specifically collectibles, don't put wax on it. I know it looks cooler, and I think it happens a little cooler when you get the wax resin where it's all melted and it looks like it's dripped all over the place. Well, me, if I'm not going to collect the bottle, I want to use the sauce that's inside. Don't do anything that will hinder me from doing it. Again, I don't want to have a steak knife to pick and chip away at this hardened plastic wax resin. If you're going to make a limited collectible, autographic, put a number on there, that's fine. Do that for the collectors out there. I'm not a huge collector myself. I want to eat the sauce. I want to enjoy what's inside. So please, make it easy on me. And the last point is labels that aren't clearly marked. And this is a little bit more vague. Of course, this could mean a lot of things, but a couple of examples I can give you. One is if you have 3 different heat levels of your sauce. Please have it clearly marked, either by the color scheme of your label somehow. It could be the text color. It could be just a little strip across the top and bottom. It could be just a stamp that says mild, medium, hot. Make it ridiculously easy. Make it foolproof to where I know what the heat level of the sauce is. Again, don't think of it so much as you're looking at your label like a piece of art. Look at it like a consumer would. If they would happen to see it on a store shelf, would it be easy for them to distinguish between flavors and heat levels? Take yourself out of the situation and maybe go so far as to ask some family and friends. It's like, what do you think of it? Is it easy to spot the differences between my 3, 4, whatever number of products there are? So that's just one example. Another one, and not a whole lot of people commit this error, but when you list the ingredients out, if you have a Worcestershire sauce, if you have ketchup, if you have prepared mustard, anything like that, any type of already prepared sauce that you include in your hot sauce or barbecue sauce recipe in the ingredients list, you should spell out what the ingredients are in that already prepared sauce. I mean, personally, I don't have a whole lot of problems with that, but you never know. People might have a preference not to eat a particular ingredient, or worse yet, they might have a food allergy. And if you don't list that something has, I don't know, anchovies in it or something, you need to let the people know what's in it. And maybe another example of a gripe that I would have concerning labels is just simply make the whole thing easy to read for people. Distinguish between if you have a marinade or a hot sauce or a barbecue sauce. Make all the text high contrast enough where people, if they have vision problems, low light conditions, whatever it may be, make it easy for people to be able to read everything that's on the label. If you have dark red on a black background, I know it looks cool and evil and demonic and everything like that. But as a consumer, and again, you have to step back and take a look at it that role. Could people easily read what's on the dang label? Well, make sure it is. So those are just a few of the things that kind of irk me, that get under my skin. What I'd like to know is, what do you all think? Is there anything that I haven't mentioned? Anything about sauces or bottles or labels? Please do so by contacting me at the number 2guystalking.com/Firecast. Look for the contact form and fill it out and tell me what gets your goat.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
Allspice Cafe is a company I came across I don't know how many years ago, but it's probably at one of the shows like the Fiery Foods and Barbecue show out in Albuquerque. I came to love several of their products, especially the Cayenne Habanero sauce, the Jolokia Ghost Pepper sauce. Now, these sauces are a little thicker, they're creamier, they make excellent chicken wing sauces. And they have a handful of ghost pepper seasonings, and one of my very favorites, I'm a big fan of Sweet and Heat. They have some spicy candied popcorn, just like caramel corn. And it is stuff that you'll just plow through in a bag within 10 minutes, and you wish that you had another couple bags with you. It is excellent stuff. But anyway, recently I spoke to Allspice Cafe co-founder JD Cowles as he was out on the road. And the following is my chat with him. So enjoy. Good morning, JD. How's everything going with you?
Pretty good, Scott. How about yourself?
Oh, can't complain. Why don't you explain to everybody where you're at right now and where you're going to?
Well, I'm driving through western Texas on I-40, not too far from Memphis, coming back from, I did a gift show in New York the weekend before Thanksgiving. Went to visit my family for Thanksgiving up in Rochester, New York, and then have another gift show this weekend in Los Angeles. So it's kind of a fast and furious drive cross-country back and forth.
Oh, I've never done a trip that long before, so I don't envy you.
Well, it's not too bad, with cell phones these days. It's, you got to make a few phone calls. You got somebody to keep your company,
Yeah, very true. Well, you mentioned you had family up in New York. Is that where you're originally from?
Well, that's a funny story in itself. I grew up in the New York metro area, Poughkeepsie, New York, about 90 miles north of the city. This all kind of ties in with the hot sauce thing. I went to college in upstate New York in SUNY Oswego, which is probably about 90 miles east of Buffalo, back in the 70s, and tried my first buffalo wing and fell madly in love with hot and spicy foods. My mom's a great cook, and we never really ate anything spicy growing up. So when I got to school, I was like, man, I couldn't get enough hot wings, And then I lived and worked in the New York metro area after school, got married, and ended up moving to Rochester, New York, working in my day job has been in the post-production industry, both for TV and film for the last over 30 years now. And I worked for Eastman Kodak Company on a software project for software and hardware for the motion picture industry. Kodak discontinued that product in the late 90s, and my customer base here in the U.S. was primarily in California. So one of my customers in the San Francisco area offered me a job, and my wife was like, I'm not moving to California. So I'm on the road, 90% of the year. I go back and forth when I can, holidays, vacation, between projects, whatever, and it just, for right now, that's the way it's got to be. It's been that way for a long time, but, Kodak is pretty much non-existent now in upstate New York, in Rochester, which is their hometown. And, when I started there in 88, they employed 65,000 people. Now it's, I can't imagine there's more than 1,000 people there. So the economy's not great in Rochester. And, my wife has been a school teacher for 20 plus years, and, she'll have a nice retirement when she's done. And, hopefully, see how things go. Hopefully one day I'll be able to move home. You never know.
That would certainly be nice.
Yeah, yep.
Now, when getting into fiery foods, well, you mentioned you fell in love with chicken wings.
Yep.
Now, was it at some point you wanted to develop your own wing sauce or just your own hot sauce in general to break into the business?
Yeah, well, back in I never ever thought of back then about doing this as a business. And when I left school in 1980, you really had no choice in the way of hot sauces. You had like 3 or 4 hot sauces available in any store. There really weren't any fiery food stores, hot sauce stores at the time. So I just found a real basic hot sauce recipe, started playing with different spices, and habaneros really weren't available back east in the 80s. It was more like late 80s, early 90s. And so I kind of just used this sauce for parties, for barbecues. I grill my wings. I mix it with salad dressings, and the whole idea behind the salad dressing is when you have hot buffalo wings, they give you carrot sticks and celery sticks, and I'm never really been a fan of blue cheese, so I would just dip my vegetables in the leftover hot sauce at the bottom of the bowl. And I was like, I'll bet you this would be pretty good with a salad dressing. So I just started using it with eggs, and just loved it. And a lot of my friends liked it. We'd like give away quart bottles at the holidays, to friends, whatever. And then when my job went away at Kodak in the late 90s, I would starting to work with some of these companies in San Francisco. I would make quart bottles of the hot sauce and bring them into the kitchens at work. And the post-production industry in the movies is really kind of a nomadic type of job, because you work at one facility, you move to the next place, and people end up traveling all over the world. I used to get all these emails from people saying, I really miss your hot sauce.
Mm-hmm.
So I still really wasn't thinking about selling it, but I ended up, the company I worked for in the Bay Area went out of business. I moved to LA, started working down there, doing the same thing, bringing the bottles of sauce to work, and just kind of got this following. And then I was thinking about it. A friend of mine has a gourmet kind of olive oil and like bread dipping blends and all these other things, and called Bistro Blends. And he was doing a home show in Los Angeles and called me up and asked me to help him work on it. And when I said yes, he said, okay, I'm going to bring you some bottles, the seals, the caps, and you have to make a label. I want some of this hot sauce to see how it does. So I'm still making it at home, and I brought in a couple cases on Saturday, and they sold in about an hour and a half. And he's like, well, we need more for Sunday. So I was up in my kitchen till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, making more on the stove, bottling and labeling, and brought more in on Sunday and sold out of those. So then I'm thinking, maybe I do have something here. And there's where I live in Los Angeles, which is actually Venice Beach. There's a little road there called Abbot Kinney, which Abbot Kinney was the guy who developed all of Venice back in the early 1900s. And so it's kind of this hip little street with lots of little cafes and high-end clothing stores, whatever. And I ended up meeting the guy that was from Rochester, New York, who owned the deli there. And after about a month of going to his place for breakfast on the weekends, coffee, whatever, I brought him in a bottle of at the time, it was just a habanero sauce. Mm-hmm. He tried it with his regulars, and next time I saw him, he goes, I need cases. Everybody loves it on our breakfast burritos. So I brought him in cases, and then I'm thinking, well, potentially maybe trying to do this as a little business. And I was like, well, I can't do this on one sauce. So then I came out with the Chipotle garlic sauce, and then maybe 6 or 8 months later, I came out with the Caribbean spice. And then in 2006, I knew about the Scovie Awards and had never been to a hot sauce show, and always wanted to enter the sauces, was never able to do it because of work, whatever. And 2006, I told myself I'm going to do it. That fall, the application, it used to be a amateur and professional category. It only had the professional category because of foodborne illness, improper bottling, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I told myself I was going to do it, and I did. I entered all 3 sauces. And, Margaret Henderson called me in November to say that I won 2 awards. The habanero sauce took 3rd place for habanero sauces, and the Caribbean spice took a 1st place Scovie for Caribbean-style hot sauces.
Oh, very nice.
It's pretty wild. So I was ready to quit my job the next day and go do this thing full time. But it's something you dream about. But I figured I went to the show the following spring. I didn't have a booth, but I just wanted to talk to people. And because just prior to that, I had sent Whole Foods, a couple other Trader Joe's, and one other small independent supermarket in LA an email about becoming a local vendor. And one of the buyers from Whole Foods contacted me and said, okay, bring me in some samples. And I had this really nice wood gift box, like a slide top wine box made that had the logo branded on the top. And I brought him in the box. He was very impressed with the box and opened it up. Saw they were they're handmade labels. Okay, if you're going to sell for Whole Foods, there's a list of about 10 or 12 things you're going to have to do with UPC codes, nutritional panel, all these things. And he's like, I'll email you a list of everything you need to sell here. And going to the show in March to talk to people, find out who their co-packers were, where they got the labels done, this and that. It was kind of the start to selling in other stores. So I got my first Whole Foods store, which turns out it's right down the street from where I live in Venice, and the second day they were open.
Oh, very good. And then what point did you meet with John Lasko?
Well, John Lasko and I both, we worked together at Kodak back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. For this software and hardware product. We used to travel around the world, teaching kind of the art of digital imaging for motion picture. Anywhere we went, all over Europe. I never made it to South America, but John did a couple times, and all over Canada, all over the U.S. I spent a month in Australia. It's the best job I've ever had. Wherever we would travel, we would always go to get some either good Thai food or really spicy foods, and so I kind of developed this. People kind of look at me as this guy who loves hot stuff. So John and I both ended up in California for different reasons. I left Kodak in '99, and I think he moved down to LA around 2001, possibly, and he went to work for a film lab down there. And I ended up moving there because the company I worked for went out of business. But we would always go out and try some different spicy foods, different hot sauces and whatever. And when it came time to really start considering, actually it was just before the first show, the Fiery Food Show, that I had a booth. John offered to do the website and help me with the shows. He does all the packaging for the online orders. He actually developed our popcorn recipes. We do shows together. We travel around quite a bit, and so he's been a part of the team since about 2006.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just in communicating with you guys over the years, I've talked to him quite a bit too. So you obviously have
Yep.
to mention him and the whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of the questions I was going to ask you, just what is a typical day for you like, and what roles right now do you and John separately play in the company?
Well, John, like I said, designs the website, maintains the website, deals with the internet orders. He's always looking at trying, different little recipes with the sauces, and because we've got a bunch of recipes on the website. I've had to have this crazy day job, in the motion picture industry. I've worked at Sony Pictures in LA for the last 10 years. Working in the movie industry, the last 6 months of a show, they call it crunch time. It's 6-7 days a week. 12 hours a day, and it's kind of hard to run a hot sauce business, your own business, and do those crazy hours, and pretty much everything in your personal life gets put on hold. Because I'm the face on the label, I've kind of gotten to be known fairly well in the LA area, just because I enjoy eating out. I've got some of my favorite little restaurants in Los Angeles, and after I'd go there for a while, I'd sit at the bar, have dinner, meet a bunch of the people that work there, and eventually start bringing them in a bottle of hot sauce here and there. So I've gotten picked up by about a dozen restaurants. John has always been kind of behind the scenes, and I've been kind of out there trying to push it where I can.
And speaking of the label, I really love the design. Of course, it's your face, but with your eyebrows and your facial hair with peppers in their place.
Yep.
Now, who came up with that idea?
That was my idea. Again, being a digital artist, when I had to make that label in 2003, I basically took a picture of my face and took a picture of all the peppers and kind of layered them all together in a software package. It was quite a bit more crude than it is currently, but when talking to Whole Foods and the fact that I had to come up with a new label, a guy that I worked with at Sony is a caricature artist, and outside of his Cuba work, he's got caricatures of all these different people I worked with, and they're awesome. I mean, he's really quite a good artist. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, I said, Joe, would you consider doing the caricature? Came in with a camera the next day, took 3 or 4 pictures, and 3 weeks later came back and gave me a digital file with the current label, and I was pretty blown away. I mean, he really did quite a nice job.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's very distinctive. You see it once, you'll never forget it.
Exactly. Yep.
And of course, recently you've dyed your hair to kind of match that. Which, of course, there's a few other guys in the hot sauce industry who do things like that.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I guess it was only a matter of time before you did that, too.
Yeah, well, I did it last year for this same holiday show I'm going back to LA for this weekend. And, actually, the very first year we did the Fiery Food Show in 2007, or actually 2008, on Friday they opened it up to the trades. And this woman was there with her husband, and she comes and gives me a business card. She said, I have a hair shop here in Albuquerque, and I have all the colors to make your facial hair match your label. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I said, is this temporary, permanent? How long is it going to last? She said, well, it'll probably last a good month or so. And I was like, well, living in LA, living in Venice Beach, you see all kinds of interesting characters,
oh, yeah.
piercings and different hair tattoos, whatever. And, I'd been thinking about it ever since, just never really worked up the nerve to do it. And then this last December, I was talking to a friend of mine in Venice, she's a hairdresser, and we talked about using Kool-Aid to color my facial hair. So the night before this holiday show, I got the Kool-Aid and made a paste and put it on my red for the mustache and orange for my little patch below my lip. I didn't have green to do my eyebrows. I went to the show the next morning. It worked out pretty well, and a lot of people kind of got the color scheme based on the banners we have. And I figured it was going to wash out on Monday when I went to work, because in the instructions it says don't use shampoo. When you rinse the stuff out, don't use shampoo because you'll get rid of the color. Mm-hmm. So I figured Monday morning use that shampoo and I'll be good to go. And 6 weeks later, I still had streaks of pink in my mustache. It took a long time to go away. But then this year for the show in New York, it kind of coincided with my trip cross country. The weekend before that, which would have been, I left on the 11th, so I drove to Las Vegas Saturday the 10th, and on Sunday in Las Vegas was the U.S. Beard and Mustache Competition Finals. Mm-hmm. I didn't enter the competition because I was prepping for this trip. It was a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I wanted to be on the road by Saturday to be in New York by middle of the following week. So, I'll stop in Las Vegas, and I know a bunch of the guys in the beard and mustache world, and there's a chapter in Los Angeles. And so I figured, well, I'll go do this and check it out. I bought the dye to do my beard and mustache, and then I couldn't get the green, so I bought this basically spray on green coloring to do my eyebrows, and it was a lot of fun. Everybody kind of got the gist of the facial color, because they know me selling hot sauces as well. But it was really a lot of fun, a great event, and then left the next morning for my journey across the U.S.
Very cool. Well, of course, people like Sam McCandless of Zane and Zach's and Flaming Joe.
Oh yeah.
They pretty much are stuck with their current looks now. Do you think that you're going to color your facial hair like this from now on?
I think I might. It's a lot of fun. People kind of get a kick out of it. I'm going to do it again this weekend for the show in LA. It's still pretty red and orange. It fades much quicker than like a permanent dye would, and so I figured I'll just go for it and see how it goes.
Be interesting. I'm aiming to go to the Fiery Food Show next March. If you guys are there, well, hopefully I will see you with your colored facial hair there.
Yep, we've got a booth. We're all set up, and looking forward to it. I'd love to try and make it to Dallas, to the Zest Fest, but not sure yet that I can swing that. I'll have to see about that. One of the things in June I worked on the movie The Amazing Spider-Man, and a lot of that work, a lot of the motion picture visual effects work, is actually transitioning up to Vancouver and actually other places all around the world. My choice in June was Vancouver or nothing, and I chose nothing. So, hopefully I'll be able to land something here in the next month or so to try and help pay the day bills and continue to build the hot sauce business. But we'll see.
All right, we're going to take a little break. Stick around for the second half of this interview with Allspice Cafe co-founder JD Cowles. We'll be right back.
Do you consider yourself to be a chilihead and want to find some hot new gear to wear?
Oh, yeah!
Look no further than chiliheadtees.com. If you're a heat freak and love hot sauce, chili peppers, or anything dealing with fiery and spicy foods, this is the place to get t-shirts to show off your obsession. Chilihead Tees is dedicated to giving you the hottest t-shirts, mouse pads, mugs, aprons, and more for the discriminating chilihead. Go to chiliheadtees.com. That's chiliheadstees.com.
Hi, it's Vic Porcelli. Don't miss our interview with Michael the Grinder Mizrachi in our most recent episode of Two Guys Talking Poker.com.
Blood, a dark passenger. The binding ties of clear plastic. They're not just hallmarks of the hit Showtime television program, Dexter. They're bullet points talked about each week on the Dexter podcast from Two Guys Talking. Don't miss out on killer dialogue that leaves you with a bloodlust for more. It's the Two Guys Talking Dexter podcast for Dexter fans. Find out more now at twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can make all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
The Two Guys Talking Nostalgia Engine is here, and we need your help. Two Guys Talking has begun stockpiling reviews of great, classic movies, and we want to know what you want us to review. Access twoguystalking.com now and tell us which classic movies on DVD and Blu-ray we should put into the Two Guys Talking Perspective Review crosshairs and help us fuel the internet's best repository for engaging, nostalgic feature film reviews. Access twoguystalking.com and click any one of the Nostalgia Engine pictures. Tell us which movies you want right now. Action, horror, comedies, even the occasional rom-com. Access twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. The Nostalgia Engine. Ride in nostalgic style while you listen. twoguystalking.com.
All right, once again, here is my interview with JD Cowles of Allspice Cafe. I wanted to talk about, some of your products just to kind of go through the line to describe each one. The first one you mentioned was the cayenne habanero, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably my favorite out of all the ones I've tasted.
Okay. Right. Yep.
When you developed that, what did you have in mind for the taste? Did you just come up with a bunch of different recipes and did a lot of tweaking?
It all kind of started out really initially. The very first thought was as a sauce for hot wings, wanting to be similar to that buffalo style hot sauce, but it's quite a bit thicker. It's not as vinegary, and I just started using it on so many other things, and just really enjoyed eating it. And John and I started working together a little bit earlier than 2006 on some of the hot sauces. He would bring some into work and sell them to his coworkers, and in the Latino community, a lot of them thought that the hot wasn't hot at all. So they're like, would you consider making a hotter one? That's where the Triple X came in, is the cayenne habanero Triple X, which has 3 times the habanero of the hot. Mm-hmm. They still thought it could be hotter. It is what it is. I didn't want to make it too hot because then it's hard to sell it. It's hard to sell to the mass audiences. If it's too hot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always blown away in Albuquerque when we go there, and like K. John's booth always has 3 or 4 of crazy hot sauces. He's a line of people there just waiting to try whatever Black Mambo, and I forget what the other ones are, but kind of crazy.
There's a whole separate group of chili heads out there that are the thrill seekers, and they love that kind of stuff.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, I definitely understand that. For me personally, because I'm a pretty good cook. I barbecue all the time. I'm always trying new things. I've always wanted to have a pretty spicy sauce. I've got a pretty high tolerance. I'm not out to go out and eat a ghost pepper or a Trinidad scorpion, whatever. But I do like it hot. Just wanted to make sure that I had something that mass audiences would like, enjoy as well.
You have to make money because the general populace they're not the extreme chili head. It's totally understandable. And then what was the second sauce you developed? The chipotle garlic.
Chipotle garlic was number 2. Yep. Chipotle is pretty popular in Southern California, mm-hmm. and I've always liked it. I added some extra garlic to it, and just really love the taste. That actually has become my number 1 seller over the years, and almost 2 to 1.
Oh, really?
Yep. And like with Whole Foods, I get a report every month from all the stores in the Southern Pacific region, and the Chipotle garlic is at least 2 to 1. The better seller of the 2. The Chipotle garlic is also the sauce that got me the Best of LA award as the best hot sauce maker in 2008.
Very cool. And then next was the Caribbean spice.
Yeah, Caribbean spice was next. Yep, I love jerk as well, and I was thinking of coming up with something along the lines of a jerk sauce. We started playing with spices and made a sauce, and when you're cooking on the stove and it's boiling hot, you really can't taste the flavor too much because it's just the vinegar evaporates, and it's pretty pungent, hard to tell. So I bottled it, let it sit overnight, and put it on a fried egg sandwich the next day, and I was like, wow, I've got something here, and that's actually turned out to be our best award-winning sauce. It's won a couple first-place Govies. It's won a Golden Chili Award. A bunch of awards, and for both with cooking and not. And it's been great. It's not my best seller, but people who like the allspice, nutmeg, and cinnamon flavors, go crazy over it.
Mm-hmm. And then since then, you've developed a Joloca ghost pepper sauce.
Yep, as the ghost pepper got to be pretty popular, so, and knowing that some people did like it a little bit hotter, and we would get those comments a lot at the Fiery Food Show. People walk up and say, "Give us your hottest," and we say, "Well, we've got our Triple X habanero, but it's really more about flavor than heat," and they would walk away. So we said, "Well, let's try working on a ghost pepper sauce." Again, not being too crazy hot because I want to be able to sell it, and a lot of people liked it. It's got great flavor. It's definitely got that Jolokia flavor. It's almost like it's a little bit smoked. We're not using the smoked Jolokias right now, but
interesting.
People still like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I would have thought that you had used the smoked Jolokias when I did a review of it 2 years ago, maybe.
At the very beginning we did.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
But then I don't know if you remember, about a year and a half ago, it was almost impossible to get ghost pepper from India. And in India, they would smoke the peppers in India. They lay them out in the field and pump smoke through these holes in the ground. The Louisiana Pepper Exchange guys bought a big batch of it, and more than half of it had dead bugs in it.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of dead bugs. And I'm sure they got asphyxiated by the smoke, and the FDA became involved, and then for the next 8 to 10 months, you couldn't get ghost pepper. And the price, tripled during that time. So now, the most of the pepper that comes in from India isn't smoked. There's a few places here in the U.S. that'll offer both both dried flakes or smoked flakes, pods, whatever. And so we do, for certain things we use smoked, and for some things we just use the plain dried jolokia. And that's pretty much been the case with the with the sauce probably the last year and a half or so. Is we're not really using the smoked ghost peppers that much.
Yeah, I never was a big fan of that smoked jolokia flavor. I mean, I like smokiness and I like chipotles and all that. So I'm glad that a lot of sauces have that fresher jolokia taste nowadays. But how it was used in your sauce, I liked it. It wasn't too overpowering. It wasn't too bitter. Just the right amount of smokiness. And it's kind of got me thinking, in the whole lineup you have, your products, the sauces, they're very smooth and they're very creamy.
Yep.
Almost as if they were designed to be wing sauces, which, of course, you said you kind of...
Yeah, that was the initial intent, yep.
Do you think if or as you develop new sauces, you're going to continue with that trend to where they will be close to a wing sauce, or at some point down the line you might develop something that's totally different, maybe something that's runnier or more watery, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I like the thickness of the sauce. And the fact that we're using these 12-ounce bottles with the big opening, if it's too thin, you're going to end up pouring out too much. So I've looked into getting some of the little restrictor caps that they put in the top, just because even as a thick sauce, sometimes people just not realize how big the opening is. They'll just pour it out and half the bottle ends up on their plate. But I like the thickness of the sauces. I would probably try and keep them fairly thick. I've got an idea for a sauce for the upcoming Fiery Food Show in March. If I can pull it all together, I'll probably try and do that. And then I've got a couple other sauces in mind. One would be a spicy barbecue sauce, which I've kind of been playing with over the last couple of years, and that's gotten rave reviews from a number of different people. Then there's this finishing sauce that I've been working on that currently all the products have are vegan products. They have no cream or no animal fat or anything, and I'd like to keep it that way. I'm not a vegan. I love meat as much as the next guy, but it just offers things up for a wider audience. And most people wouldn't really think about hot sauce being vegan or not anyway, but we kind of put that on a label, vegan friendly. They're gluten free, and we're now we put a small amount of canola oil in the sauce, and that helps thicken it up a little bit. But that oil, the canola oil, is one of the most genetically modified foods out there. And as I start to branch out into other markets like natural food markets, we're now using certified non-GMO canola oil. Actually getting us into quite a few more stores.
A question I would ask, most people in the hot sauce industry will use the 5-ounce woozy bottles for their sauces. You use, like you mentioned, the bigger 12-ounce bottles, which personally for me, I like better.
Yep.
I'm tired of shaking the bottles, especially when it comes to thick sauces. I am more of a fan of thick sauces than I am the runny, watery sauces. So it allows me to get more out. So it was the decision to use the 12-ounce bottles based on that?
Because it was a thicker sauce, I used to play with these 8-ounce Quadra bottles, which are those rectangular shaped bottles with a pretty thick glass, but the opening was pretty small. Mm-hmm. I think we've got a downpour coming down here. It's raining pretty hard. I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone, but
I can hear it a little bit.
So a lot of people complained about the sauce being too thick with those bottles. So I ended up, I tried the 12-ounce ring top bottle, which I like quite a bit. I also offer like a 6 or 8 ounce bottle, 2 different sizes, but the pricing, that 12-ounce bottle is one of the most popular bottles out there. Mm-hmm. So I ended up just going with the 12-ounce because the 6 and 8 ounce were more expensive than the 12-ounce bottles. And just starting out, I couldn't justify the added expense.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think it works for you, and I wouldn't change it.
So I like it. It works out pretty well.
Well, not only that, I think the prices that you have for it, comparatively speaking, the price per ounce, you get a better deal with your sauces than other people.
Absolutely, yeah. The 5-ounce bottles are typically about $4.95 a bottle, and we can offer a 12-ounce for roughly $8. Whole Foods, they sell them for $7 a bottle. We've been asked to keep our prices on the website a little bit higher than any of the retailers sell it because they don't want to compete on price. Mm-hmm. But even at $9 a bottle, it's still a pretty good deal.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I don't want to leave out your other products, your seasonings and the popcorn. Right. John developed your caramel corn.
Yep, yeah, and that was just an experiment. There's a high-end gourmet shop in Los Angeles called Surfa's. And their nickname is Chef's Paradise because they're both a restaurant supply and they also offer some really, really high quality ingredients, different spices and sauces and whatever. And I've been a big fan of Surface for many years. I got to know one of the guys in the restaurant supply part of the industry, who introduced me to the buyer, and I brought in at the time just the 3 sauces and did a tasting with them with like the Caribbean sauce is really good with seafood, shrimp, scallops, any type of fish, light meats. And so I brought in different samples for the buyer and the executive chef to try, and they loved them. And so I got into that store, and then actually I just lost my train of thought there. The rain just stopped here. It's crazy.
Just enjoying the environment there.
Yeah. But this store has worked out to be a great store for us. One of the buyers was like, anytime you come out with a new product, we're more than glad to carry it. So when we came out with the rubs, they started carrying the rubs. The popcorn, yeah. So we were doing a tasting there, and John had been experimenting at home making caramel corn, and he was adding some of the sauces to the caramel, and then basically baking them dry, in the oven. And the guy who sets up all the demos at Surface, tasted it. He brought a bunch of Ziploc baggies full, and he's like, "This stuff's amazing. You either have to come up with this as a product or give me the recipe." I mean, everybody in the store loved it. So we came out with that as a product, and we had to do some modifications because the vinegar in the sauce mixed with the caramel we had some problems with some of the popcorn clumping together, and so we made a change and decided to do it with dried spices as opposed to using the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually they've done pretty well. They're relatively new in the whole scheme of things. We've been selling them for a few years now. We've got a few of the Whole Foods stores to carry them, and they do very well at some of the shows we do. It's worked out really well. And 2 of the 3 have won Scovie Awards. The ghost pepper I think they thought was a little too hot, but the sweet chili, which is the mildest, took a 2nd place Scovie, and the habanero took a 3rd place Scovie. So that was pretty cool.
Me, I love the stuff. Of course, I love the combination of sweet and heat. So anything like this that anybody does, I'm going to be a big fan of.
Sure.
But you guys do it especially well. And of course, I love the berry jam that you guys have.
Yeah, that's actually starting to do pretty well. The show I did in New York, that turned out to be quite a big seller. And people like you guys have a spicy strawberry jam, and the whole idea of Jaloka berry came from the Jalokia pepper and strawberry jam, and I thought, well, Jaloka berry sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want it too hot because I did make a batch that had too much Jalokia in it, and it was hard to eat. I mean, it was very hot. And so we cut the Jalokia in half, and all my neighbors in Venice, all my barbecue friends, they're kind of my guinea pigs whenever I come out with a new product. And the first thing we used it on was vanilla ice cream with chocolate sauce.
Oh, that sounds good.
It was great because the ice cream kind of tempered the heat a little bit. The chocolate and the strawberry goes really well together, and so it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, personally, I will try pepper jellies and things like that on ice cream. A spicy fruit sauce, but adding chocolate to it, I never thought of that. That might be a good combination.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very good.
You kind of touched on, products that you might develop in the future. Is there anything right away that you have in development that you're wanting to debut very soon?
Well, I am testing. I'm kind of reworked that barbecue sauce again, and that'll be a combination of spicy, sour, salty, sweet. So it's like I said, the first test I did 2 years ago, it went over very well. And it was good on everything from fish to pork to I did some Kobe beef back ribs for 4th of July a couple of years ago, and finished it with that sauce, and good on pretty much anything you put barbecue sauce on. And then the finishing sauce, there's another restaurant involved with the finishing sauce, but they haven't given up their portion of the recipe yet. And I know it has cream in it, probably some butter. It's one of my favorite places that they've been carrying a couple of the products for probably a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And mixed with some of their stuff has just been phenomenal.
Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine a question you get a lot is, do you have a physical cafe? Where's the Allspice Cafe? Where can I go to it? And do you have any plans?
Possibly. I mean, right now cash flow is the big issue, and with the economy the way it is, I mean, I've seen too many restaurants open and close in very short periods of time. In 2003, when I had to come up with a name, I thought about wanting to have a cafe at some point in time, maybe something to retire to, and who knows. So I thought Allspice Cafe, and so that because everything would be spice based, not necessarily spice for heat, but spice for flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of stuck. I've had a few people kind of say, well, what's this cafe thing? I said, well, it's something up at the top of my head, but whether I can pull that off or not, I'm not sure. It's a tough one, but I definitely need to look for, if I'm going to do that, I need to look for some serious investment and some help along the way. We'll see. You never know.
Well, be sure to open one up in St. Louis.
There we go. That's an interesting question for me there, because people are you going to open it in Rochester, New York, or are you going to open it in L.A.?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, because my food and restaurant connections are much more developed in Los Angeles than they are in Rochester, because I'm here so much. If I tell my wife, well, I'm opening up a cafe in Los Angeles, I'm not sure how well that would go over.
Do you find that the restaurant scene out there is more fickle, or I guess short-lived?
I wouldn't say so much short-lived. It's just that certain parts of Los Angeles with the real estate boom, happened in the last 5 to 10 years. Like Culver City, California, which is where Sony is, or Sony Pictures is. It used to be the old MGM Theater. That's where they did The Wizard of Oz. I mean, it's got a lot of history. And back 6 or 8 years ago, you only had a couple places you could go to get a bite to eat. Mm-hmm. So they kind of revitalized the downtown Culver City area, and real estate is now through the roof. The whole Venice, Santa Monica area, that's been prime real estate forever. And one of my favorite restaurants there was a restaurant called Cache. And it used to be an old Austrian restaurant called Arnold Schwarzenegger had opened up this restaurant. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it now, but he had bought this building in Venice. It had this beautiful outdoor patio, and it's a great restaurant. They would do all their Austrian foods and some Italian and some other European style foods, and it did pretty well. But Arnold sold the building at the peak of real estate, had sold the restaurant to another Austrian guy, and after he sold the restaurant, the rent for the restaurant went up to $36,000 a month.
That sounds like a lot.
So yes, that was quite a bit. So the owner said, I can't keep Schatzi's. It was called Schatzi's on Main was the name of the restaurant, and he's like, I can't keep it open because the real estate's so expensive. Mm-hmm. When it became Cache a couple restaurants later, I know the rent was $45,000 a month.
Wow.
And a good friend of mine was the head chef there, and after about a year, I was walking down the street, and the manager saw me and said, "Hey, you coming by tonight?" I said, "I'll be stopping and say hi." He goes, "Well, tonight's going to be our last night," and they'd just been open for a year, and the whole night they were trying to renegotiate with the landlord about the rent, and they ended up closing 2 nights a week to try and reduce the rent a little bit. At the end of the night, though, we're staying open, and then a couple months later, the owners decided just not to open the doors. They were closed Sunday and Monday nights, and on that Tuesday they just never opened. So I've seen too many of the newer restaurants that have come and go because of real estate being so expensive.
Well, it'd be interesting to see an all-spice cafe, just see some of the flavors that you would develop, spice combinations.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yep, and like I said, being a big barbecue guy, I'm sure there'd be a fair amount of barbecue offerings on the menu.
I'm there. I had to make the trip
out
to L.A. or Rochester just to try that out.
Yeah, there you go. No, that would be great. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer driving there, just in case you go through another storm. But
yeah, it's kind of lightening up out here. It was pretty heavy there for a while, but
well, I appreciate you talking to me. Is there any last minute things that you want to mention or plug before we get off?
Well, let's see here. Nothing too crazy. Just that we really enjoy this, the world of fiery foods, and it's always great to go to these different shows, these different events, and we're really looking forward to Albuquerque in March. Last year was our best year to date, and we always kind of base our what we bring the next year based on the previous year's sales. And the Chipotle garlic was gone by noon on Saturday, and and then
wow.
Caribbean Spice, which has never sold out, was gone by the end of the day Saturday, and I mean, we came home with 1 case of product, of mixed product. All the popcorns were gone. It was just amazing. And we get a lot of return customers from Albuquerque, and their big question is, when are we going to be able to buy your stuff in the stores out here? And that's another tough one, but we're hoping to get there. And we're, like I said, we've expanded to Northern California. We're looking for ways to expand beyond that. That's part of my reason we're going to New York for this holiday show. And, I'd rather not have to go back to my day job if I didn't have to.
Well, hopefully the Fiery Food Show will be even bigger next year, it being the 25th anniversary and everything. So that's a big milestone, for the whole spicy foods industry.
I guess if it's the 25th anniversary, I may have to really do up my facial hair this year, this next show.
Well, you're going to have to, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Like I said before, you might be stuck with it.
Yeah, could be. have to do some pics with Flame and Joe and Sam.
Oh yeah, start growing your eyebrows out.
Exactly.
Everything. Just exaggerate it.
Yes, definitely. Well, the mustache, as you saw in that picture, has gotten pretty long. And that was kind of fueled by the first annual Los Angeles Beard and Mustache competition a little over a year ago September. And I entered I knew nothing about it. I didn't know anything like that existed. And, I've never really let my mustache hair grow too long. So I just figured, I'll go check it out and meet a few people. And I brought a bunch of hot sauce with me, wore my hot sauce T-shirt so people could kind of see the relationship between the facial hair and the label. And after that event, seeing some of the crazy hair, I was like, I'm just going to let it grow and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, anyway, JD, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
I hope you have a safe rest of your drive, and hopefully I will see you soon.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
And thanks once again for JD for that terrific interview. And if you're interested in trying any of his great sauces, seasonings, or that delicious candied popcorn, simply go to allspicecafe.com or just click the link in the show notes. And again, if you have any gripes for hot sauce makers, things that you wish that they were doing differently, let me know about it. Go to the contact form at twoguystalking.com, look for the Weekly Firecast page, and shoot off an email. Let me know. So that wraps up another installment of the Weekly Firecast. If you love the show, tell your family, your friends, the barbecuers, chili heads that you know in your life, especially the ones that you know listen to podcasts typically, and there's always a few people out there like that, especially me. I just listen to these kind of things all day long. So anyway, as I said, this wraps up this episode. So until next time, remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.